Honestly, if you still don't use Midjourney as a 3D artist, well, you're kinda missing out. Today I'm gonna show you why. We're gonna create these butterflies with the power of Midjourney, Photoshop and Blender, obviously. Let's start with a fresh scene. First of all, we're gonna delete the cube, we don't need it. I'm gonna press Shift A and I'm going to create plane. And this plane, we need to move it on the x-axis. And to do so, I'm just gonna type in -1, so just one square to the left, I guess. And we'll create the wing out of this plane, but first of all, we need to change origin back to 3D cursor. To do so, I'm gonna go to Object, Set Origin to 3D cursor. And now, as you can see, it kinda moves like that, and that's exactly what we need. Then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create an empty. I'm gonna press Shift A again, go to empty, and maybe let's create empty cube. Let's scale it up a bit. It doesn't really matter, but I like to scale it up. It's just my visual preference, I would say. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back to plane. I'm gonna go to modifier. And in the modifier, I'm gonna select mirror. And mirror object, I'm gonna select the empty. And so now, if for example, we start rotating it on the y-axis, as you can see, we kind of get in these flops. But one other thing we need to do, we need to parent this object now to the empty. So to do so, I'm gonna select my plane first. Then I'm gonna select the empty second, and then press Ctrl P. This is the shortcut for set parent, and I'm gonna set parent to object. And now if we move this empty, as you can see, we still kind of maintaining the same position of our plane. Cool, now we can start animating this. First thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna open my timeline, and I'm gonna switch my timeline into graph editor, and I'm gonna go to frame 0 and put a keyframe onto rotation. And to do that, you can basically just hover over this rotation thing and press Y. You can also do it in the viewport by pressing Y and setting the rotation keyframe. Now we have the rotation keyframe. What I'm going to do is I'm going to delete everything except the Y here. To do so, you basically just select your object, open it here in the graph editor, then you can select Z, then press Ctrl and select X, and then hit delete on your keyboard. Cool. And not many people know about this cool trick, but you can use modifiers inside of graph editor, and graph editor has their own modifiers, and I'm gonna show you how to use them. The modifier we will need is noise. If you don't see it, just press N on your keyboard, and here you can go to modifier, add modifier noise. And as you can see, now we have noise on y-axis, and this is how it looks like. And basically we kind of get in this sort of butterfly movement, but it's not what we want. Let's change some of the parameters here. For that, I'm gonna select the scale of something like 10. So it's kind of a bit more slow, but at the same time, it goes the way I want it to go. And the strength, let's do 10 too. And as you can see, it looks like it's too much. So let's go to 7, and it looks cool. But in this case, what I'm gonna use is 4, because I think that 4 would be just fine here. You can also play with offset, phase and all that stuff, but the main things here are scale and strength. I think we can set the strength on something like 6. Maybe let's lower down the scale to something like 4. So basically the scale is speed and the strength is kind of how high your wings will flap. And I think this is what I want. But as you can see, it goes below, so it goes to minus, and we don't really want that. So to correct that, we can add another modifier, and this time we're gonna go and add the limits. And for the limit, we're gonna set the minimum of Y, and as you can see right away, it cuts out all of the movements that go below 0. Finally, we get to the stage where we're gonna start doing materials, and for the materials, I'm gonna use Midjourney. Yeah. So as you can see, this is my prop for Midjourney. I typed something like white bizarre mod on a black background, and a black background is really important here. It will make sure that you'll kind of get these type of images, as you can see here. And so with this prompt, you can get some sort of these results. As you can see, those are really cool, and I decided to use this one. So this was white bizarre mode on a black background, basically. I've just redone it a couple of times, and then I've choose this one. You can just go and hit upscale, and then you have something like this. Cool, now we have it. And so now let's turn this image into really cool texture. To do so, I'm gonna open Photoshop. Now we have it inside of Photoshop, and first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to crop tool, and I'm gonna split it on half, as you can see. Something like that would do. Cool, now we have it. And so this is gonna be our albedo map. You can tweak the colors as you wish. For example, we can add curves, we can basically create any adjustments you want inside of Photoshop, as you usually would. Then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hit Ctrl J on my keyboard, and I'm gonna go to Filter, 3D, generate normal map. Here I'm gonna press OK. As you can see, now we can create our normal map, and for the detail scale I use something like really high, for example 150 would do. Now we have our normal map, but now we need to create opacity map as well. I'm gonna hit Ctrl J again to duplicate the image, then I'm gonna select the magic wand and I'm going to select the black background. And this is why black background are important, is because you can easily select them in Photoshop. And then I'm gonna go to my fill tool and fill it with pure black. Then I'm gonna hit Ctrl Shift Y to invert the selection, and using my brush I'm gonna go and brush it with a white color. As you can see, now we have opacity map as well. Now all you need to do is save albedo, opacity and normal map. You can use PNG. Cool, now we are back in Blender and we have our animation going on. Let's open the shader editor. To do that, I'm gonna go here and select shader editor. I'm gonna select my mesh. I'm gonna create new material and I'm going to name it moth. Now what you need to do is you need to drag and drop all of your textures. First of all is albedo, then we have opacity, and then the normal. So obviously you plug albedo into base color, into albedo, and we can start previewing what we are having. I'm gonna go and select my camera. And we are gonna be using Eevee, but the process is pretty much even simpler for cycles. But in this case, I'm gonna use Eevee, just so you can create it on any computer. Now I have it, and I'm going to go to world right away. And as you can see now, I have my sky texture connected, but instead I'm gonna use environment texture. I'm gonna connect it to background color, and I'm gonna connect background to surface. And for the HDRI, I'm gonna use the HDRI that I've got from HDRI Heaven. It's called Moonless Golf, because we are creating some sort of night scene, I guess. So let's try doing something like that. Cool. What I'm gonna do next inside of Eevee, I'm gonna check ambient occlusion, bloom, screen space, motion blur. We don't need motion blur actually. Here I'm gonna select refraction, just so we get a bit of a better quality result with Eevee. Then I'm going to create normal map node. I'm going to connect color to color and normal to normal. And one more thing you need to do is change the color space from sRGB to non-color. As you can see now, we have our normal, but it looks kind of inverted. So what you can do is you can select your mesh here, and inside of edit mode you need to select this plane, go to mesh, normals, and hit flip. That's cool. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to connect this opacity, and with opacity there's a couple of tricks you need to know about when you're using Eevee with opacity. So I'm going to connect opacity mode into alpha, and as you can see nothing really happens. And if we add plane, so to fix that, all you need to do is select your material, then go to material properties of this object, and here we have this material. Go here into settings, and here we have blend mode and shadow mode. And so for the blend mode, what we need is alpha clip, and for the shadow mode, again we need alpha clip too, so we have a right shadow going on our object here. So what I also like to do is I also like to connect this albedo onto emission. Let's lower the emission strain to something like 0.5. Now we can hit play. But before that, I'm also gonna go to compositor, use nodes. Let's add glare here, glare to high. Let's select the streaks to 6, angle offset to 15, and go here into this menu and compositor. Let's select camera, and let's make this plane now like metallic maybe. Now we basically have our animation, and since this animation is procedural, you can basically select your empty and your plane, then you can hit duplicate, then you may scale it and rotate it, and now we basically duplicated our animation. But as you can see, they now kinda sync. To fix that, what you can do is you can go back to your graph editor, and here you can change the offset, maybe change the strain a bit, maybe increase the scale or maybe decrease the scale to make it a bit faster, and now you can have independent movement in your scene, as you can see. Now once you have the idea of how to make it, let's go to our bigger scene and see how I set it up. And as you can see inside of this scene, we have pretty much the same logic going on. I've just duplicated these butterflies again, and I've used a bit of a different texture that I've also generated using Midjourney. And here what I did is also I've populated it with some of the masks that I've created for my characters, but I decided to use it as a ground texture or something like that. And that's basically it. I also used the spotlight and some area light going on here just to make it look a bit better. Let me know if you like this video. You can also get this scene file on my Patreon. You can check out all my links in the description of this video. Check out my Instagram, also join us on Discord, and thanks so much for watching. Bye.